You make $60,000 a year. That sounds reasonable, respectable, responsible. It's not minimum wage, it's not struggling at the bottom, it's not living paycheck to paycheck by definition. And yet, you still feel broke. The paycheck hits your account, and for a brief moment there's relief. Then, the rent clears, the car payment processes, insurance withdraws automatically, groceries cost more than they did last month, gas creeps higher, subscriptions quietly stack up, a random expense shows up out of nowhere. And suddenly, you're checking your balance again. You're not reckless, you're not buying designer clothes every week, you're not flying business class, you're not living wildly beyond your means. So why does it still feel tight? Why does $60,000 feel like survival instead of stability? Here's the uncomfortable truth. The problem isn't your income alone, it's your structure. Most people think feeling broke means not earning enough, but that's rarely the real issue at this level. The real problem is invisible financial pressure, fixed costs that quietly consume flexibility, lifestyle upgrades that feel small but compound, taxes that reduce usable income, and a system that runs automatically without your awareness. You don't feel broke because you're irresponsible. You feel broke because your money has no margin. And margin, not income, is what creates stability. In this video, we're going to break down exactly why $60,000 feels smaller than it should. We'll look at the hidden forces draining your paycheck. We'll calculate what your income actually becomes after taxes and fixed expenses. We'll expose lifestyle creep in its subtle forms. And we'll show how small structural changes can completely shift your financial experience without needing a raise. By the end of this video, you'll understand why your usable income is much lower than you think, why fixed costs are more dangerous than variable spending, why lifestyle inflation traps middle earners, and why comparison culture makes you feel behind, and how to redesign your structure to finally create breathing room. But before we go deeper, I want you to do something simple. In the comments, write this: $60K isn't the problem, structure is. Because awareness is the first shift, and once you see the pattern clearly, you can break it. If this topic feels familiar, if you've ever checked your account and thought, where did it all go? Hit the like button so this reaches more people stuck in the same cycle. And if you want clear, structured, no-nonsense financial strategy, subscribe to Finn Explains Money. We don't chase hype, we build systems. Now, let's break down what's really happening to your $60,000.
First, we need to remove the illusion. $60,000 sounds like what you earn, but it's not what you keep. If you're in the United States, after federal taxes, state taxes, depending on location, Social Security, Medicare, and possibly employer deductions, your take-home pay is significantly lower. Let's estimate conservatively. At $60,000 per year, your gross income is $5,000. After taxes and payroll deductions, your take-home might be closer to $3,800 to $4,100 per month, depending on your state and benefits. Let's say it's $4,000. Already, you're not managing $5,000, you're managing $4,000. That's the first psychological distortion. When people think, I make $60,000, they subconsciously calculate lifestyle decisions based on the gross number, not the net number. But your lifestyle runs on net income, not salary. The fixed cost trap. Now let's break down something far more important than spending habits: fixed costs. Fixed costs are dangerous because they're invisible once set. They don't feel like daily decisions, they feel permanent. Let's build a common $60K scenario. Rent, $1,600. Car payment, $450. Car insurance, $150. Health insurance premium, $250. Utilities plus internet, $250. Phone, $100. Minimum debt payments, student loans, credit cards, $300. We're already at $3,100. Remember, your take-home was $4,000. That leaves $900. Now from that $900, you still need groceries, gas, household supplies, personal care, entertainment, clothing, emergencies, savings, investments. Suddenly, 60K doesn't feel stable, it feels tight. And here's the key realization. You don't feel broke because you're overspending on random stuff. You feel broke because your fixed structure consumes flexibility. Once fixed costs exceed 60 to 65% of your take-home pay, your financial stress increases dramatically. And most 60K earners sit around 70 to 80% fixed allocation. That leaves almost no margin, no room for error, no breathing space. One unexpected expense, car repair, medical bill, flight for family emergency, and your entire month destabilizes. That's not low income, that's structural fragility. Lifestyle creep, the silent upgrade. Here's where it gets subtle. When people move from 40K to 60K, they don't feel wealthy, they feel slightly more comfortable. So they upgrade slightly. A better apartment, a newer car, more dining out, more convenience. Nothing extreme, just slightly better. But here's the math problem. Each small upgrade becomes a permanent fixed increase. You don't just rent a nicer place for 1 month, you lock in a higher rent for 12 months. You don't test drive a nicer car casually, you commit to 60 months of payments. Lifestyle creep isn't dramatic, it's incremental. And incremental increases in fixed costs destroy long-term margin. At 60K, you're high enough to afford upgrades, but not high enough to absorb them comfortably. That's the danger zone. The middle-class pressure illusion. Now we address psychology. 60K statistically places you around median individual income in many regions, but socially, it feels average at best. Why? Because you don't compare yourself to the national average, you compare yourself to your environment, your coworkers, your neighbors, your social media feed. And social media doesn't show median lifestyles, it shows upgraded ones. Vacations, renovations, new cars, brunch photos. What you don't see, credit card balances, auto loans, refinanced debt, financial stress behind the image. So even if 60K is stable on paper, it feels insufficient emotionally. An emotional comparison fuels spending pressure. I deserve this. I'm not behind. I work hard. Those statements feel justified, but they quietly inflate fixed obligations, and fixed obligations create stress.
The margin principle. Here's the central idea of this entire video. Financial comfort isn't about income. It's about margin. Margin equals income minus fixed costs minus essentials. If that leftover number is small, you feel broke. If that leftover number is strong, you feel stable. Two people can both make 60K. One feels trapped, the other feels calm. The difference is margin. And margin is created intentionally, not accidentally. The real problem? No system. Most 60K earners do not have a money system. They have money movement. Money comes in, money goes out. But there is no structured allocation, no automatic investing, no defined emergency buffer target, no fixed cost ceiling, no weekly review ritual. Without structure, money disappears into friction. Not because you're careless, but because friction always wins against passive intention. If you don't direct your money, your obligations will. Now we move into action. I want you to calculate something powerful. Your financial pressure number. Step 1. Add up all fixed monthly obligations. Step 2. Divide that number by your take-home pay. If your ratio is above 70%, you're not broke, you're overcommitted. That clarity alone changes everything, because now the target is not earn more, the target is reduce pressure. From here, the solution becomes practical. You can renegotiate fixed expenses, You can cap lifestyle inflation. You can automate margin creation. You can redirect income before it disappears. You don't need a dramatic life overhaul. You need structural adjustments. Small percentage shifts in fixed costs create exponential psychological relief. When pressure drops, clarity returns. When clarity returns, control follows. And once control exists, $60,000 stops feeling like survival. It starts feeling like leverage. Right now, understand this. You are not failing. Your structure is. And structure can be redesigned.
Now that you understand why $60,000 feels tight, we need to shift from diagnosis to redesign. Because income is static in the short term. Structure is not. Most people try to solve pressure emotionally. They promise to spend less. They tell themselves they'll be better next month. They rely on discipline. Discipline fails when structure is wrong. What you need is mechanical advantage. You need to reduce financial pressure in ways that do not require daily willpower. Let's start with the biggest lever: fixed cost compression. If your fixed expenses consume 70 to 80% of your take-home pay, your first mission is to bring that below 60 to 65%. That alone changes your experience completely. But this does not mean extreme downsizing overnight. It means strategic friction reduction. Start with housing. Housing is usually the largest fixed cost. If your rent is more than 30 to 35% of your take-home pay, you are structurally tight. At $4,000 take-home, that means rent above $1,400 to $1,500 begins to create pressure. If you're paying $1,700 or $1,800, that single decision may be responsible for most of your stress. This does not mean you must move tomorrow. It means you must understand the cost of the decision. A $300 monthly difference in rent equals $3,600 per year. Invested consistently, that difference compounds. Left unaddressed, it compounds stress. Now look at transportation. A $450 car payment, plus insurance, plus fuel, can easily exceed $700 to $800 monthly. That's nearly 20% of your take-home income going to transportation. If your car is consuming more than 15% of your take-home income, it is limiting flexibility. Most people upgrade cars when income rises. Few people calculate the 5-year opportunity cost. Freedom rarely comes from horsepower. It comes from lower obligations. Next, examine debt structure. Minimum payments keep you alive. They do not create stability. If you are carrying credit card balances at high interest, that is financial drag. Interest payments quietly reduce future options. Every dollar of interest paid is a dollar that cannot build margin. Aggressive debt reduction at this income level often produces a greater psychological return than aggressive investing, because eliminating a $300 minimum payment instantly increases monthly margin by $300. That is a permanent structural improvement. Now let's shift from compression to allocation. Once fixed costs are under control, margin must be captured immediately. If you wait to see what's left, there will never be anything left. The rule is simple. Pay yourself before your lifestyle expands. The moment income hits your account, a percentage must move automatically into savings or investments, not manually, automatically. Automation removes emotion. At $60,000, even 10% automatic allocation changes your trajectory. That's $6,000 per year. Over 5 years, that becomes $30,000 plus growth. The key is not the percentage. The key is consistency. Consistency builds identity. When money moves automatically into savings, you begin to see yourself as someone building stability. Identity reduces impulse spending more effectively than guilt ever will. Now we address the emergency buffer. If you feel broke at $60,000, you likely lack a real emergency cushion. A true buffer is not $500. It is at least 3 months of essential expenses.
Not 3 months of full lifestyle spending, 3 months of survival baseline. If your essential monthly baseline is $3,000, your first stability target is $9,000. That number changes your nervous system. When unexpected expenses appear, you stop reacting emotionally, you respond strategically. Without a buffer, every surprise feels like failure. With a buffer, surprises become inconveniences. The difference is psychological safety, and psychological safety is wealth at this income level. Now let's talk about spending philosophy. Many people earning $60,000 live in a constant oscillation, restrict heavily 1 month, overspend the next, save aggressively for 2 weeks, then rationalize a purchase as a reward. This pattern creates instability. What works instead is pre-decided enjoyment. Allocate a fixed percentage for guilt-free spending. If 10 to 15% of your take-home income is designated for lifestyle enjoyment and everything else is structured, you remove emotional conflict. You are no longer cheating, you are executing a plan. Structure reduces shame. Shame drives hidden spending. Hidden spending destroys margin. Next, we must address comparison. If you constantly measure your life against higher earners, you will always feel behind. Someone earning $120,000 feels pressure too, because their fixed costs likely rose with income. The illusion is that higher income automatically creates peace. It does not.
Peace comes from margin relative to obligation. A person earning $60K with 50% fixed costs may feel calmer than someone earning $120K with 80% fixed costs. Freedom is ratio-based, not income-based. Now let's examine growth realistically. Should you increase income? Yes, but not as an emotional reaction, as a strategic expansion. At $60K, increasing income by $10,000 to $15,000 over several years is powerful. But if you allow fixed costs to rise simultaneously, the gain disappears. Income growth without structural discipline equals lifestyle inflation. Income growth with fixed cost stability equals margin expansion. Margin expansion equals power. So if you pursue promotion, certification, side income, or skill upgrades, anchor your lifestyle at its current level. Capture the difference. That gap is where wealth forms. Now let's talk about investing. At this income level, simplicity wins. Low-cost, diversified index funds, retirement accounts with employer match, consistent contributions. Avoid speculative behavior. Speculation increases stress. Stress increases reactive decisions. Reactive decisions damage structure. Slow investing builds stability, and stability compounds. Now we address a hard truth. Some regions make $60K objectively tight. High-cost cities compress margin heavily. If your housing consumes 40 to 45% of take-home pay, relocation may be a financial decision, not a lifestyle one. Geography influences structure. Structure influences freedom. This is not about chasing cheaper living impulsively. It's about recognizing when environment silently taxes your future. Now we move to identity transformation. Right now, you may see yourself as someone who makes decent money but struggles. That identity shapes behavior. Instead, adopt this identity. I operate on structure. Structured people do not rely on motivation. They rely on systems. They review their finances weekly. They cap fixed costs. They automate investing. They define lifestyle boundaries. They measure pressure ratios. Identity drives repetition. Repetition builds results. When you review your finances weekly, even for 15 minutes, you interrupt drift. Drift is the enemy of margin. Most people do not feel broke because of one bad decision. They feel broke because of 200 unreviewed small ones. Now let's bring everything together. If you earn $60,000 and feel broke,
The solution is 1. Calculate take-home pay accurately. 2. Measure fixed cost ratio. 3. Reduce fixed costs below 65% of take-home pay. 4. Build 3-month survival buffer. 5. Automate 10 to 20% investing. 6. Cap lifestyle during income growth. 7. Conduct weekly 15-minute reviews. This framework transforms experience, not overnight, but steadily. Within 6 to 12 months, pressure declines. Within 2 to 3 years, options increase. Within 5 years, stability becomes visible. And here's something important. You don't need to feel wealthy to be stable. You need to feel in control. Control removes panic. Control reduces impulsive decisions. Control creates space for long-term thinking. And long-term thinking builds wealth. $60,000 is not luxury income, but it is enough to build structure, enough to create margin, enough to invest, enough to reduce pressure, enough to shift identity. The real shift is this. Stop asking, why does 60K feel small? Start asking, how do I design this income intentionally? Because income without design leaks. Income with design compounds. You are not broke. You are operating without structural intention. Fix the structure. Pressure drops. Margin rises. Stability grows. And suddenly the same $60,000 that once felt tight begins to feel controlled. Not because the number changed, because you did.